Yes, indeed. Good morning and welcome. You're still watching Power Breakfast right here on Citizen TV. And it's that time when you take a look at the headlines. Of course, you'll continue enjoying music from Ohangla Moto Moto as we continue with the show. Remember, the hashtag to use throughout this show is Power Breakfast. My news review panel is already here in studio. We're joined on my right. Let me start with my right hand side. Albert Koche, County Assembly Speaker Elgeyo Marakwet. Also an aspirant for the KO South MP's seat.
Thank you.
Next to him, we have Ken Okoth, MP for Kibra. He's also seeking to defend that seat on an ODM ticket. Karibu sana. On my left, we have Senator Martha Wangari, who's also aspiring to be the next MP for Gilgil. And for the very first time on this news review panel, we have MP for Sirisia, John Waluke, who's also seeking to defend his seat on a Jubilee ticket. Well, Karibu sana. It's good to have you on this panel.
Thank you.
Also, you can tweet us. You can tweet us at Citizen TV Kenya, at Fred Indimuli. Bwana Ken Okoth is at Okoth Kenneth on Twitter, at Senator Wangari on Twitter, at Speaker Kuchei on Twitter. Bwana John Waluke, you're still on Gmail.
Yahoo.
We'll try and give you. Right now, you can use him as a hashtag.
We need to get him a handle.
Now, of course, ladies and gentlemen, the biggest headline this morning has to do with this. Okay, let me just read the headline as it is. Bold plan to spy on all calls, texts rolled out. That's in the Daily Nation. On the Standard, phone secrets, why you should be very afraid. Now, the Communications Authority has written to mobile phones to feed black boxes to capture all data to be shared with KRA and other agencies. Now, this data will include the data calls, the calls you make, the text messages you send, including mobile money transfer data. Now, this will be sent directly to the Communications Authority, which will then share with other government agencies, including KRA, and of course the consumers are up in arms. Now, how bad is this? I know the argument is that it will improve security, but then again, on the other hand, if you've been having so many mobile money transactions, KRA now will have access to that, and probably could actually slap you with a bigger tax, I guess. Senator, let's start with you.
Actually, you know, I don't think it's very new. And I don't actually think the government has not been doing it. And not just in this country, even in other countries. I think we have seen it happen even in the US with the Russia relationships and the issues that came up even after election. But more importantly, is that since it's an election year, I think it will be important, but we must get to what point does it invade in someone's privacy, and that is why you see consumers up in arms. I also don't think it transmits to KRA really slapping anyone with higher taxes because of money transfers, but it will be a useful tool in terms of curbing terrorism, as we are looking at funding of terrorist activities. The issue of drug trafficking, you know, we are dealing with drug trafficking right now, money laundering. So for the criminal bit, it is fine. But to what extent? Of course, expect court battles on it. I can see consumers' organizations going to court to actually challenge it. But I think CA has even a bigger responsibility in terms of curbing violence and funding of the violence, because every election year there is some form of violence, mostly by politicians. So to that extent, and security, I think it is a good thing.
Bwana Waluke, would you feel comfortable with all this data from your phone being accessible by this authority? All your mobile phone money transfer, all your texts, all your calls, all this data is now available to the government and all these other agencies.
I think they are doing it only during this elections time, and after election maybe it will not continue. That's what I think.
But if at all they want to continue beyond
if it continues, I think I will not be happy. But during these elections, security-wise, I think it is allowed. If they can only do it during this time of election, but after election, they leave us go through with what we have.
But does it really make a difference, Bwana Okoth, whether they do it now or beyond the elections? The fact that they are doing it anyway should raise concerns in some quarters.
I think, first of all, Senator Martha has mentioned something here, is if you choose to spy on 40 million Kenyans, and let's say out of that 40 million Kenyans, there's 30,000 phones. how many messages are you really spying on and keeping track of and managing? If you're talking about serious money laundering and messing up of our financial system and cheating on taxes on a major level, it is not being done on M-Pesa. People who are importing vehicles into this car, heavy machinery in this car, into this country, people who are importing things like sugar through Kismayo and Mogadishu, all that fraud that is undercutting the government, people who are selling bootleg products from liquor, you go buy a Jameson and it is a fake Jameson with a label that is Kebs. Spying on people's phone calls is not going to stop the people who are doing that. So if it's a question of revenue and stopping financial mismanagement, that's not going to work. The systems are already in place. It's called the Know Your Customer principle for Airtel and M-Pesa, Safaricom, so well that all banks, all phone mobile users who are sending money, the maximum you can send on M-Pesa is about 140 a day. Yeah. So that is the money that's being lost in this country, the billions that are not paying taxes. The manufacturers, the industry owners who have come up with special deals through parliament to adjust the tax code and exempt the things they want exempted. Those are the issues. So you're invading the privacy of Kenyans. At what point are we willing to sacrifice our privacy? And you're not enhancing our revenue connections. But the second one is the argument about security. Security monitoring and surveillance is allowed, but it has to be targeted again. You know, if you're looking for terrorists like the people who took down Westgate, the people who took down the Garissa University, spying on a Mambamboga in Kibera sitting along the railway line selling hamandazi or hamburger is a waste of resources and time and an invasion of her privacy, for she has no connection. So I think targeted smart security with targeted groups, high profile people, members of parliament, public figures, you should spy on us the whole time. But the regular citizen,
but now,
no.
You brought up the issue of privacy, and Speaker Kuche,
it is also in the Constitution.
Yes, that could be an issue, because now, up until now, that information, your private texts, to whoever you send them to, your private calls to whoever you call, is only accessible to the mobile money service provider, and can only be accessed through probably a court order. But now, if at all this information will be shared by more than to more than one agency, KRA, all these other agencies that could need that, that means any person, it will be accessible to a lot more people, to a wider circle of people who they can now access your private messages. Don't you think that is a bit worrying?
I think they say the devil is in the detail. I think I strongly believe there is a very thin line between invading into our privacy and the sole reason as to why the government has decided to take this route. I again strongly believe that since we are in electioneering here, such a move is welcome completely, because one is for security purpose, though again I'm aware that there is nothing new that is being done. I'm 100% sure the NSIs have been doing quite a number of these things. It's only that they want to bring it to the limelight for all Kenyans to get to understand that there is something that is being done, and actually it's going to be a precaution for whoever has been doing some of these things. But in terms of privacy, I still believe that it's going to be challenged in court, definitely. Kenyans are continuously aware about their rights in the Bill of Rights, Chapter 4, and I believe that other than the mobile providers, any ordinary Kenyan who feels that their rights are going to be infringed will definitely want to go to court to seek.
So we should expect absolutely litigation.
You can already see. I think the consumers organizations are already up in arms in terms of challenging that decision. But I also don't agree with the Honorable Court that it's only the high-profile people that are involved in this terrorism. In fact, we have seen people who you'll never think that they're involved at all. Someone, your next door neighbor, who looks pretty normal, but on investigation, you find that they are part of a bigger scheme. So I think the targeting could be done, but it does not differentiate in terms of class, that it can only be MPs or high-profile people.
Yes.
Everyone, really.
Yes, of course, this issue has just come out today, and this black box, as they call it, will be installed by Tuesday next week. So we're not talking about things that will happen next year. It's happening as soon as next week. So by Tuesday next week, all your private information
by Monday,
will be out
someone
there.
will be in court.
Yes. All this information will be out there. If you've been texting the wrong person, it's no longer just the mobile service provider that would be privy to that information. It could be available to not just NIS, even people working at KRA could be able to access it.
But I think, Fred, I would not want us to look so much in terms of this money, M-Pesa and so forth. I think the greater part of this is in terms of security. We are continuously facing a lot of terrorism challenges in the country, and I believe this is now going to help the country, especially during this election time, because we do not know how many texts. If they are going to get into the WhatsApp, the many evidence that people normally exchange, if they are going to go into the SMS, I believe that I will definitely want to say I welcome this move.
Yes, probably if I could say, it comes from the mobile service providers at Safaricom, Airtel and Orange probably. That information goes to the black box. The black box copies the message to another server at the Communications Authority, which then shares that information with government agencies, including the Anti-Counterfeit Agency, ACA, Kenya Bureau of Standards, Kenya Revenue Authority, Kenya Industrial Property Institute, KIPI, National Police Service, among others. That means a wider circle of people will have access to all the information.
Just obviously.
Yes.
But that whatever Honorable Albert has talked about, and in terms of security, in fact, for me, forget the terrorism. In fact, what is for me more critical is the interboundary fights that we get in Turkana, in West Pokot, in Laikipia. It is not once that has been, even in Marakwet, I think it is not once that it has been linked to leaders, really. So this one can also be a deterrent in terms of the organizers, although it does not eliminate, because I will make sure I don't communicate on phone. I will have a night meeting and execute whatever, but it will be able to
in as far as security, money laundering and countering such crime, it's well and good. But when it comes to private information, the intimate texts that you send, family issues, you're having a fling here and there, and you're quoting someone, and all this information will now be available to workers at KRA, workers at KIPI, the National Police Service. It is very easy for anyone with access to this to take advantage of that.
I think, to me, as I said before, there's nothing big about this.
It is not big now, but
there's nothing big about it, because it has been there before.
It has been.
Yeah, but it wasn't there before.
This information has not been available to people at KEBS.
Maybe just to open it to the public the way they have come up with, but it has been there before. Like NSIS have been copying all these messages.
For
they get it for every day. But now it is now open to almost to everybody who has a phone. So there is no secret. Yes. But it does not cause any harm.
And you're comfortable.
To me, I'm comfortable.
His words and his body language say two different things. So we've seen this before, where his mouth is saying one thing and his throat is almost choking.
No.
To let the air out to say it. I've read the story. It's on page 6 of The Nation. This is a little bit different from what he's saying. The NSIS job is to carry out surveillance and to use the tools that they have at their disposal. This one here has nothing really to do with NSIS and surveillance. This is an attempt just to broadly capture everybody's information for unclear purposes. The tender that was awarded for worth 207 million to one company to tap into the rights and the technology of Safaricom, Airtel, and do this. I oppose it on the first
tender?
Yes, the procedurally on the tender. But number 2, but that's not my first objection. There might be another company that can do it better. But number 2 is the issue of constitutionality. This is just unconstitutional. It's too broad. That telecom company has no capacity to guarantee our secrets. The guidelines and regulations for what data can be relayed to KRA or whoever other agencies is not clear, and how it can be used. KRA is at liberty at any time to request specific data on an individual. They can request even my bank statement.
They always do.
My M-Pesa statement and my bank statement are exactly the same thing. One's digital, one's analog. They should be able to request if there is a purpose for it, but they shouldn't be collecting all of it in the security. Remember, last year, the website of the Communications Authority was hacked. The website of NEMA was hacked. None of these systems are safe. We're going to end up with a lot of data just being wasted there. But the fact of the matter is, this is going to go to court, I am opposed to the broadband thing.
Yes.
I think the NSIS should continue to monitor people who are suspected of crime, fraud, political
Security
exposure.
agencies.
Yes, security agencies, yes. But this extra, no.
I think
it's electoral property.
You know, the issue of the security laws that were controversially passed in Parliament is the parent to this that we are seeing now. In fact, it's now implementation
It
of
is
those
MPs who
security.
actually
Yes,
passed this.
it's actually the implementation of the security laws that we passed in Parliament. You know, now they are coming to bite back. But I think most importantly, it's Communication Authority has said that personal data will not be shared. Of course, you don't know how that will work out. I'm not a communication expert, but I would imagine that you don't really need to share that information if it is necessary. If it is necessary. I agree with Okoth on the guidelines in terms of broad network. Of course, people are very uncomfortable with their information getting out there. But for security purposes, at least for this time, for election, for me, to curb violence, we also must be more vigilant in our communications and what we actually
mobile phones will become a very unsafe gadgets because we do understand.
It's actually going to have a serious backlash on our economy. Remember, our economy is currently underperforming. The sectors that are keeping our economy alive is the informal economy. The billions we are transferring in small transactions. I want to buy a ticket for my cousin in Mombasa. I send the M-Pesa money. No, no, no. Once everything is being surveilled, people are going to cut back on activities. The number of phone calls people are going to make, the amount of time, the kinds of messages they think are saying, do I really need a lot of
people to meeting one-on-one?
If you're doing nothing wrong,
no, but
why
let me
do you
tell
need
you.
to come back?
Okay, this is actually, I like that she's brought up this point. This is like, let me give you an example of domestic battery, right? Or domestic violence. If you tell your neighbor, I want to know, do you and your wife beat each other up? And you say no, or it's none of your business. I say, no, no, no. If you are not fighting, you should be able to tell me, and you should allow me to watch and be sure that every night you're not fighting. This is what you're telling the Kenyans, that if you're doing nothing wrong, you should let me see. Yeah.
Why are you cutting back?
Definitely when I saw Court pointing at the tender, I'm just hoping that NASA would not be the petitioner in terms of the tender.
Well, the communications, the consumer,
because we have known them to be going to court every now and then.
Especially when they have someone they
absolutely.
A debate about something that will affect everyone.
Well, now that you've mentioned, tell us who is this company
that conversation is and I don't want it to become a Jubilee versus NASA issue.
No, that information on the Court is accessible from the registrars. You can actually unveil the company.
We know that mobile phones have broken marriages. Mobile phones have caused a lot of issues. Now, all this information from your mobile phone could be accessible to other people from the NIS. Anyway, let's
the late Juma Boy. The late Juma Boy was one interesting man. He kept Amulika Mwizi. In fact, I was saying it as eulogists in Parliament. He was actually convinced that the issue of having a smartphone is one contributor to a lot of breakdown of things. So he kept Amulika Mwizi throughout. He never had us. Maybe that's the only reason. He does not have a Twitter account.
And me, I have a very funny phone that I believe is not.
Like a security gadget, security gadget.
Let's now take move on to other issues. And of course, the other biggest story this morning has to do with the audit on universities that was released yesterday. And if my director could help me with this one, there's a story. This story was done by Wilkista Nyabwa, and it was headlining on Citizen TV yesterday and this morning. If we have that story, can you play it?